she succinctly puts it, the government's red ink is our black ink, which is
right.
Because one of the implications, if financial saving equals zero, then it follows that a public sector deficit must equal a private sector surplus, since they add up to zero. And that's sort of a basic MMT proposition. But I think the point is that it's a basic relationship, whether you ever heard of MMT or not.
So Stephanie Kelton, folks, who's one of the leading MMT gurus now, she is a very dynamic public speaker, and she's very glib. And one of the things she does is she says, hey, well, she tells a story where she was in a group with a bunch of policymakers and, some economists and things like that, like government officials and whatnot. And she said, right now, the so-called public debt is just some big number. And she said, if you could just snap your fingers and get rid of that, would you do it? Sure. And then she says, okay, right now, corporate pension funds and this and that and household blah, blah, blah own this much in treasury securities. If you could snap your fingers and have all of those treasury securities disappear from all their balance sheets and, from pension funds and whatnot, would you do that? And of course, nobody raised their hand because they were flabbergasted. And her point was, those are the same thing. And so, so driving home the point that the government's debt corresponds, if there's an outstanding treasury securities with the face value of whatever, $35 trillion or something, yes, that's how much Uncle Sam is in the red. But then that corresponds to there's a bunch of people in the private sector who own those as assets. And so it's black ink to them.
She succinctly puts it, the government's red ink is our black ink, which is another way of saying financial saving equals zero. So I guess what I'm saying in brief terms is that crowding out is not consistent with financial saving equals zero. I should add that crowding out, the government spending can obviously crowd out the private sector on a real basis, which is, we're just talking about financial crowding out.
Right.